Hey there guys, Katahan here, welcome to the Age of Decadence. It's a little hardcore RPG that I've been playing in the past couple of days. I already put through an entire completed playthrough. I did it once and I'm about halfway through another. An interesting little title that was developed by Iron Tower Studio. It's been in early access for a little while. I've been keeping an eye on it for almost 2 years now, I believe. It was officially released about 6 months ago, but at the price point at the time I wasn't quite ready to pick it up. But now that, of course, Gaben has blessed us with the glorious summer sale, I've decided to throw it into my library, into the backlog, the ever-growing backlog, and put some time into it. I've put, I almost think, like 15 hours at this point, which is enough to play through the game once, of course, and then with a lot of detours. The game is quite short, but it really rewards replayability, and this is just a little bit of my thoughts on the game. So what we're going to do is start up a new character. Welcome, adventurer. You're about to die and we salute you. Yes, indeed, this game is very difficult, and it lauds its difficulty as an accolade, honestly. The Age of Decadence is a very difficult game from which you're used to. Its world is harsh and unforgiving, and it doesn't really take much to end up dead. In fact, it's painfully easy, especially if you try to play the game the way you would normally play RPGs. So when you roleplay a mighty hero who's able to handle any challenge and smite evildoers by the dozens. So yeah, the game is very, very hard. It takes its challenge, it takes its the roots of its stats-based RPG, and it really pushes it to the extremes. So I'm going to start up. There's some various backgrounds. You have different factions, quite a few actually. The three noble houses of Aurelian, Crassus, and Daratan. You have the boatmen of Styx, which used to serve the emperors of old, and now exists as a kind of commissioned assassins guild that works in the public's eye. It's quite impressive. The Commercium, which is trade merchants. The Imperial Guards, which of course are the remnants of the legions of old. This game takes an interesting premise. It's a very unique world building that I've not really seen in any other games this far, but I've seen in other media, specifically a few books. Primarily the Broken Empire series, God. That being the Prince of Thorns, King of Thorns, and Emperor of Thorns books. Very, very good, and of course their counterparts, the Red Queen's War. Can't remember who wrote them. God, that's a black stain on my literary experience, but it's sort of set in a time when the Roman Empire was at its height. They faced off with a insurmountable foe, gave over some of their power to learned men called the Magi. Whether or not these Magi actually practiced magic is yet to be seen, but something occurred in which they brought forth the gods, and the gods smote their enemies, but unfortunately the empire is left in ruins. So the premise is very much so you're wondering if throughout most of the game, if there was an ancient technology that these people had access to. Are we in the past? Are we in the future? But it's quite interesting. It's a neat little post-apocalyptic take on the Roman Empire. So I'm going to start with the assassin background. When diplomacy fails, assassination is often the only recourse. Renowned and respected for the ability to resolve disputes with the least amount of bloodshed, cloaked by the shadows of the night, assassins are in high demand amongst all strata of society. Whether drawn from a petty dispute or as a matter of state, blood is blood. So of course we're going to play as Bartholomew. Always good. This gives us some faction reputations to start the game out with. Of course, the noble houses kind of, they're more positive towards us, if ever so slightly, being one in each. The boatmen of Styx, of course, that's the guild in which we belong to when you first start out as an assassin. In the halcyon days of the empire, the emperor commanded his own guard. Apart from the regular duties of protection for the emperor, they were trained as experts in infiltration and assassination. Many political and military opponents would meet their unexplainable misfortunes or death in the rapture of night, ensuring the long-standing stability of the empire. After the fall, without a master to serve, the guard disbanded into the chaos of the fallen empire. Once outside, they found that even as the world lay in ruins, their peacekeeping services were in great demand. An assassin's order was established that later bore the proud name of the regiment, the Boatmen of Styx. And of course, the commercium likes us a little bit more than the noble houses, as of course the boatmen's services can always be purchased, and purchased in gold is preferable. And of course, the Imperial Guards aren't too keen on us, as peacekeeping and assassins normally don't go hand in hand, especially with as far as law enforcement is concerned. And the 40 Thieves, which is a large guild of thieves, of course, are indifferent to us. What do assassins and thieves usually end up having in common, besides sneaking into places undetected? So, here's the meat of the game. A lot of what occurs in the game is centered around your chosen stats, and of course your skills. So you have two different types of skill sections. You have combat skills and civil skills. Combat skills, names on the tin, it's going to help you out in the combat system, which is a tile-based, turn-based combat system, a la Fallout and CRPGs of old. It's it has depth, but it does rely heavily on stats. This whole game relies heavily on stats. So if you don't have the appropriate stats, it's a little bit of a crapshoot. So when we start out here, straight up, I already know what my assassin would like to have in order to make him efficient at what he's doing. So we're going to lower charisma. Unfortunately, that does give us a minus 45 reaction bonus, and it worsens our ability to impersonate, use etiquette and persuasion, or even our streetwise sensibilities in order to influence people. But instead of those things, we're going to up our strength. So we have a strength of 8, we're going to be very strong. Our constitution at 6 is not bad, and our intelligence at 5 is not bad. But the major things an assassin needs is, of course, dexterity, strength, and perception. You want to be strong enough to overwhelm an opponent. You want to be fast enough in order to slit his throat before he can even draw his blade. Constitution isn't so important, as hopefully we'll be dodging more attacks than we'll be taking them. And perception is good because, well, you want to end up at the end of the day actually being able to see your target, or the arrow flying through the air towards your skull. So this gives us a negative to our skill points and a positive to our combat, or our civil skill points, a positive to our combat skill points, since I changed our charisma. So now we have 55 combat skill points, and I'm going to put that into critical strike. In the combat arts, as in most things, quality counts more than quantity. A single well-aimed strike at a vital organ is worth a dozen superficial wounds. A wise fighter learns to maximize the effectiveness of each and every strike. And as a little, for me anyways, a neat little tidbit here, or a little attention to detail, is that it has the different skill levels. Right now we're unskilled, and the little flavor text that goes alongside is pretty neat. You flail your weapon in the general direction of your enemies. So you're going to raise this up to 3, which gives us journeyman. Predominantly concerned with making contact, you target whatever your opponent gives you. That leaves us 40 points over, and of course the costs are incremental as you level them up. And we're going to be using a dagger primarily because we're an assassin. These skills here, all of these, will only be useful in combat. Same thing with these two. Critical strike is useful in combat as it gives you the ability to land critical hits more often, but it's also useful outside in the ever-present and almost the meat of the game, which is the pseudo choose-your-own-adventure actions, or like event sequences, where you'll primarily be using your abilities to speak to people, to affect them outside of combat, and to just generally pass skill checks. So we're going to increase dodge also to 3, and dagger to 3, and we're going to give critical strike to 4. You'll learn that is more effective to stab their squishy parts. Dodge is just a jump to the left and then a step to the right. Dodge is good between the two, so you can either dodge an attack or you can block an attack. You can only block an attack if you have a shield. But it's going to choose the highest rating of the two, so whichever gives you the best chance in order to mitigate damage, that one's going to be used. So you want to put all of your points into dodge or all your points into block. There's no point really like splitting between the two unless you're some crazy min-max hybrid character that I have no idea about, so don't even worry about that. And and then otherwise, of course, we're an assassin, so we gotta get into places quickly and unnoticed. So I'm gonna raise my sneak. You've discovered that making noise is a dead giveaway. Dead giveaway. We're also going to raise our lockpick, and unfortunately we can only raise it to 2. The best way to defeat a lock is to look for a spare key under rocks nearby. And then lastly, we have to spend all these points or else they will disappear, unfortunately. So we're going to go into Streetwise, a mix of different traits ranging from shrewd awareness to an ability to trust, that are the most helpful when one deals with people a lot. So it's kind of good just to like keep us from getting the wool pulled over our eyes. So there we go, that's character creation. It's very in-depth, there's a lot of skills, and each of these skills will pop up in your adventures throughout the world, especially in the skill checks during the event sequences. I've noticed primarily that there is an opportunity for each one to pop up, and occasionally you will have skill checks that will check both. Whether or not it's an offset, I'm not sure. I've seen it where if you have a skill check for lockpick and traps, and it's a split skill check, if you fail one but pass the other, a different event will occur than if you had passed both. So alright, let's get right into it. The world and an empire that once ruled it lie in ruins. Noble houses that lorded over provinces and commanded vast armies have been reduced to broken city-states. The Imperial Guard, remnants of the Imperial Army, acts as a deterrent to open warfare. The knowledge of the old days has all but been forgotten. Hucksters peddle ancient wares of no value to the ignorant, and the lords seek and hoard artifacts they barely understand. A fanatical mysticism is slowly growing favor, and long-held resentments are rising to the surface. Some speculate that another war approaches, others actively encouraging it. Times like these bring nothing but suffering for the common man. However, they offer a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to those determined to seize the moment and follow it to riches, power, glory, and often an untimely death. Your adventure starts in Terran, a small crumbling town far away from the main tracks of travelers and caravans. It's been dying for the last 100 years or so, kept alive only by the combined efforts of its inhabitants. Broken stonework has been replaced by makeshift wooden construction, creating the impression that a new town is slowly emerging from the ruins of the old one. Much like Terran, the noble house controlling the town has seen better days. Before the war that toppled the empire and the devastation that ensued, House Daratan was one of the most powerful houses, but that was then, and times have changed. Today it barely has enough strength to maintain its hold over the local guilds. You make a living for Nelios, the guildmaster of the Boatmen of Styx. Never squeamish when it comes to sticking your blade in someone's back, you decided to put your unique talents to good use and joined the Boatmen a few months ago, eager for some serious work. The Boatman was a good outfit that went back a long way. In the olden days, the Emperor commanded his own guard. Apart from their regular duties of protecting the Emperor, they were trained as experts in assassination and infiltration. And we've already read this, sorry to break from the narration. You enter the Boatmen of Styx Guild. The business-like nature of the establishment is very clear. There are no guards anywhere in the room. So this is the actual interface of moving about the game. The game is decently pretty. Like it's nothing to write home about. There's some low-res textures here and there, but the lighting is sufficient. And you know, this kind of game, it's not about the graphics. It's about the role-playing aspect and the meat of the game. So let's just jump right into the inventory. Really simple: cloak, helmet, amulet, hands. All that jazz. Gonna put a hood on and be like super edgy. Look at that, so good. Then you have different types of weaponry with different types of materials, which is really cool. You can see down there that the damage is 5 to 8, a speed, which is AP 4. It means we need to spend 4 AP for the regular attacks, and there's a very complex system of attacks in this game. A weapon hardness, 20%. The THC bonus is the chance to hit bonus, which is 6, and the passive value bonus is 4%. I'm pretty sure the passive value bonus is just a bonus to all values, but honestly, I'm not actually sure. I've never really understood what that does, so hey, you always rely on K2Haim for providing you the hard-hitting information. So also there is some interesting kind of combat modifiers that you can apply. We start out with a poison vial. Good for coating your weapons and other nefarious purposes. After 20 successful strikes, the poison will be washed away by blood. Its effects last 3 turns, starting with the next turn after the attack. Damage can be reduced by the victim's constitution. Basically, it does damage. Poison is really good for assassins because, well, you actually get the opportunity to do damage to people who have high armor, because if you make a successful attack on them that is negated by their armor value, then the poison will work its way through anyways, even if your blade didn't do any damage. Also, the weapon hardness refers to its hardness versus armor. So you'll see armor hardness here has an armor hardness of 10 with a damage reduction of 2, and it limits my max AP to 12. Armor penalty 6 means that it's going to be modifying my dodge and my block by that number. So if I have a 50% chance to dodge and I'm wearing this armor, it is now a 44% chance to dodge. Very simple. And then that bottom number there versus CS 30 means that is my defense against critical strikes. So I have a defense against critical strikes by 30%. Simple stuff. I also have a net, which is really cool. The nets are very useful in combat. If you ever need to basically wear down a very strong opponent, a very skilled opponent, throwing a net then will basically reduce their combat effectiveness by half. It's fantastic. So Nelios is calling us forward. Let's go chat with him. Nelios, the guild master of Terran's assassins, always smiled. He smiled when he talked to people as if he was just told a good joke. And he smiled when he had to kill, which in his mind was a joke life played on its victims. Since the dead are good at keeping secrets, few people thought of Nelios as an assassin, and the general consensus was that Nelios was strictly an administrator of the guild rather than somebody who killed for a living. Perfect timing, Bartholomew. I just got a contract on a merchant who arrived this morning. His name is Gratius, and he is staying at the inn. He should be dead before morning. The Commercium, the Merchants Guild, has a special request. Before you kill Gratius, tell him that the Commercium wishes to remind him that he is still not welcome in this town. The job is worth 50 Imperials, 10 now, the rest upon completion. Any questions? Now, so this viewpoint where we're speaking to him is one of the primary ways the player will interact with the game. We have our money here, we have different dialogues, and we're just going to run through it. Only 50. It's not the best contract, but considering that the merchant isn't guarded, it's a good deal. Come on, think of it as an exercise. Alright, well, he's just arrived and somebody wants him dead already. It doesn't take long to make enemies these days. The Commercium is tightening their control over the trade, which means that we'll be busy for a while. Alright, I'll be back for the balance in a few hours. Time for some last-minute shopping. And so by doing this, I'm pulled away. There is a map in the game, and actually I can't access it right now, unfortunately, but this is the town of Terran. This is the little merchant's plaza, as it were. And since this is part of the opening quest sequence, you don't have a lot of freedom, but this is very kind of indicative of the way the game acts, is when you do decide to carry on with the event sequences. Sometimes you're locked into a sequence for a very long time, and you're only allowed to leave once you've completed it, or once you're dead. But if you die, you don't have a lot of opportunity to continue the game. Usually it's reloading a save, starting a new game, or just quitting, which is a bit of a black mark in my opinion, but we'll get to that. So we are here in the Commercium's guild hall. They got this really sweet, like, was that Mercury or Venus and the moon? I'm not quite sure what those old signs are, but it's cool. It's green, it's gold, I love it. It almost kind of looks like Slanesh's symbol, but we'll ignore that. Welcome to my store, my friend. We have the finest selections of goods at unbelievable prices. So please, make yourself at home and browse the merchandise. And remember, when in doubt, buy it. It's better to regret buying something than regret not having it when you need it the most, am I right? Why am I telling this to you? You look like a smart kid, so you know this already. Am I right? Maybe, you could be right. Let's browse your wares. What I'm after, though, is a baller cloak, because I love wearing a cloak as an assassin. It just makes you look cool. And you'll see the economy in this game is very simple. Same thing with the inventory management. You have just unlimited slots on your side. You have your gold. You have how much weight you can carry. That's it. As for buying things, their price is up there, their weight is down there. You buy it, you buy it, you buy it. That's it. If you have skill points in trading, then you're going to buy at a better price. You're going to sell at a better price. But in general, you're going to get totally dicked by merchants. They're just going to rob you, daylight robbery. And so since we already have a bow and all, or we already have rope and all that jazz, the only thing I really want to buy is some of these nets. We're going to buy 3. And so the way this works is they're 25 gold a piece. I'm buying 3, so that's what, 75. My gold is subtracted, and that's highlighted that I'm wishing to bring it over, trade it over. We have it. Good. Exit to leave. Just wander around town. You are standing in the richly decorated halls of the Commercium. Everywhere you look, you see signs of wealth, from the silk and gold woven tapestries lining the walls to the gilded vases and intricately, or is it, carved stonework. If money is power, then the interiors are designed to convey the message that the Commercium is a very powerful guild. And of course, the very Roman designs. I love these guys. I also love the shields that bear the emblems of the houses or factions that they belong to. Very cool. So we can travel a little ways over to the alchemist. And whatever ails you, my friend, you've come to the right place. I have potions that can fix your blood circulation, cure headaches and insomnia, make your liver as good as new, which is something you should consider if you're partial to drink. So, what's it gonna be? Well, my friend, it's going to be, look at all this jazz. So, they have black powder, and they have what's called rock oil, which is essentially like gasoline or, you know, raw oil, raw black tar, whatever it is. So they are kind of there in that level of technology. They understand gunpowder and the like. Well, they don't use it for firearms. They use it for blasting and for making little grenades, little ceramic grenades, which is pretty cool. We're gonna buy up some of this. This is a healing salve. We're gonna buy 2. I think we can afford. Nope, can't. We're gonna buy 1. And this just heals you. There's no healing in combat. The developer was very adamant about not allowing the player an advantage over the AI or allowing combat to work into a slugfest that is very unrealistic. They're not going to wait for you in combat to slap on some healing salve, just rub yourself up with lotion. No, they're going to kill you. And there's no magical potions that are going to heal you in combat. So you fight till you die, you heal yourself after, that sort of jazz. Cool. So we're going to exit out here. And it's going to be dark soon. You should head to the inn. Let's go to the inn. And this is kind of part of the choose your own adventure storytelling. Things just kind of occur and then you react to them. Using the numerous holes and rough patches as footholds, you easily climb the crumbling wall of the inn, reach the window and slip into the room. The merchant is awake, talking to his bodyguard and pointing at a chest. The bodyguard doesn't look like a fighting man, most likely one of the local brawlers who sells the guests a false sense of security for a few imperials. Sensing your presence, the merchant turns around. He looks at the aimed crossbow, at the dull metal of the loaded bolt, and opens his mouth to say something, to object or bargain for his life. Still, fear takes over and he continues to stare at the crossbow like a rabbit mesmerized by a snake. The bodyguard finally wakes up and starts reaching for his sword. Kill the traitor. You tell Gracious that he isn't welcome in this town and pull the trigger. The bolt hits Gracious in the chest, the force of the impact throwing him on the floor. The bodyguard looks at you, then at the dead body of his master. He's still trying to decide what to do. Judging by the scars, the bodyguard has been through a lot, yet managed to come up on top. He may look dumb, but he can clearly pack a punch and shouldn't be underestimated. So he has some options here. 1. Reload the crossbow while the guard is mustering up his courage. That's probably going to take us into combat, but it might take us into a branching sort of story that we could do something else with it. Persuasion. So you can see the little, the skill check in the brackets. I was paid to kill 1. Since I don't work for free, you can relax and put your sword down. You'll walk away with your life and my business here will be done. So if we have a higher persuasion, we can tell him, hey man, it's not worth your time. I was here to kill the merchant. You can walk away and go do something else. It's not a stain on your honor that he died. I'm an assassin of the boats, the boatman of Styx. No one's gonna fault you for walking away from that. Or, using my dexterity, my critical strike, catch. Throw the guard your crossbow. As the attention switches to it, grab a bolt, holding it as a short dagger, and lunge at the guard, aiming for the throat. I know I have a high dexterity and a high critical strike, so we're just gonna end him. Success. The bolt head pierces the guard's unprotected throat, cutting the arteries and flooding his windpipe with blood. His eyes roll up and he falls down without a sound. So this is just one of the aspects of being able to feel powerful as a player based on your stats and your skills, and feeling competent. Like if I'm playing an assassin in other games, you know, let's point it out, like there's some weaker games out there, like let's say Skyrim for role playing. You know, you have a high sneak, you know, high one-armed weapon skill, whatever, and you can walk up behind people and just slit their throats all day. Like, that's well and good. But when you actually get into combat, or when you actually get into these RPG events, a lot of times it feels like who your character is doesn't actually matter. Like, if an event wishes to occur where you're like, you're locked up, or like somebody comes up behind you and you're ambushed, like there's nothing you can really do about it typically in those games. In this game, it allows you, if you have the right stats, and that's my caveat, because if you don't have the right stats, you do feel very unable to act on the world. But if you have the right stats, you feel very powerful. Like I just like walked up and did something cool, like very narratively cool, by throwing him the crossbow and stabbing him in the throat with a bolt. I think as a literary fan and as a reader, that really appeals to me. Anyways, let's loot the rune. And so this is back into the just like the movement section of the game. I'm going to check through the guards. This is one of the ways you make most of your gold besides quests, is just taking people's shit pretty much. He even has a crossbow in his inventory because I threw it to him, which is kind of a cool little nod to detail. We'll take all this jazz. He has some expensive robes and a nice little turban. And the chest. You take everything valuable from the chest, which basically I think was just like some iron and some gold, pretty much. And now my work here is done. There's nothing else I need to do, so let's just leave the room. Oh yeah, we'll leave. Perception success. So having went to leave the room, one of my skills procced an event. You're about to leave when you notice that the trader is clutching some parchment in his hand, as if he had hoped that it would shield him from harm. It looks like an old map. Might fetch you a few imperials. When you take it, you notice a small gray sphere lying on the floor nearby. You pick it up and carefully examine it. It's an unusual metal sphere with several grooves running around it. Perhaps a lore master might be of service. So there's these artifacts of the old world that lore masters, the guys and gals who basically go prospecting and check out these old relics, might know about. And you can actually play as a lore master too, so there's a massive amount of replayability and like seeing things from different perspectives in this game.